my Russell was a very severe cerebral palsy, but we loved him and we took him with us and cared for him. And a group of mothers met at Children's Hospital, and we was all wondering, well, what are we going to do when they get to be old enough to go to school? Well, there was no school. My husband and I, we went to many different schools, and they would just put up their hands and say, no, he can't come here because he can't sit alone, because he can't feed himself lunch. And so we decided that we could build our own school, which was a big project. I believe somewhere around 90 children in wheelchairs that came to that building, and it was the happiest day. It gives me yet the chills to think how happy we were to have a building for our children, because you want your children to be educated and, you know, be out in the world.
Well, first of all, I didn't know there was any place to take my son. I had tried all sorts of places like Children's Hospital and all of that. And at Children's Hospital, Mike had flunked the test because by 3.5 he could read already. I taught him to read at home, and he was so eager, and he had a photographic memory, which we found out later. So then I found the Cerebral Palsy Center in the phone book. So I thought I'd try it. I'd tried everything else. Many of them were labeled retarded, as my son was, because he had a speech problem, and he also had a hearing problem. And it's hard to get that label off because of his speech and hearing problem. He got a job proofreading the Colorado State highway maps. It was probably one of the most joyful days of my life and his. He was a very lucky CP kid.
In August of 1953, my daughter Pamela was born, who it turned out had cerebral palsy. And it was 2 years later, in 1955, maybe 56, when she was 2 or 3 years old, that my wife and I were desperately looking around. We brought her over, she was enrolled. I started becoming involved in the affairs of the association. And in the late 50s, I think, went on the board of directors and continued ever since.
Well, you know, what was it like serving on the board in those early years?
There were some fundamental problems. Number one was financing. We tried the telethon, we tried the bake sales, we tried the bingo games, and all of these had more or less success but kept us afloat. The other major problem, development was in the 60s when we got the legislature to allow, not mandate, but allow education of the handicapped in the public school system. And then subsequently, we got the legislature to mandate education, not voluntarily with the school district, to not only mandate it, but to provide funds for the public schools to provide education for the handicapped, whether they be physically handicapped, mentally handicapped, whatever it may be.
If you had any lessons for us to keep in mind as we go forward, what would you want us to be as an organization?
Just what you are. As it has been for the past more than 50 years, an organization that provides training and education and opportunity to children who otherwise would not have that opportunity.
And Women's Committee was a group that tried to bring volunteers into the cause. The Denver Women's Committee at that time consisted of 9 mothers, wonderful women, doing a great job. And we started with a series of coffee. Some people were so taken back by the severity of the disabilities, and there were a lot of children who lived in, bodies that were in wheelchairs, couldn't walk, and couldn't talk, couldn't use their hands. The center almost prided themselves in those days on taking the most severe cases that no one else would take. And So some were overwhelmed by that, but the ones who stayed for good. One of the most enriching things that's happened in my life for me and from our family was getting involved in a cause that was foreign to us and so worthy. And I'd recommend that to anybody. Insofar as the overall cause and what I would hope for people we serve in the future, I'd hope that every avenue in our culture would be open to them. I do like seeing them incorporated in community life more and more by way of employment and by way of education, because it's the only way we really all get to know each other and learn how to look beyond the shell to the people inside.
So I tried to get a hold of the lady who was in charge from the federal government, and she wouldn't answer my phone calls. So I took the trouble to find out her home number, and I called her at 2 a.m. in the morning and told her who I was, and she said, "Are you aware that it's 2 o'clock in the morning?" I said, "Yes," and do I have your attention? Because I've done some figuring, and I've taken my daughter for the last 5 years, and it would be X amount of dollars, $5,000 or so for transportation, and I really don't want to be reimbursed. I just want transportation at my house on Monday morning, or I will notify somebody. Well, that Monday morning I had a Skyline bus, which was one of the methods. I had an Aurora school bus, I had a Red Cross car, and I had a private car. I had 4 people there to take her to school that morning because it was, you know, something that they definitely, and I was a rabble-rouser. I would like to see them make as many children able to do as much as possible and to get back into society. That's the most important thing. We need to let them be as individual and be, you know, do as much for themselves as they can. At the time, I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and they really took me through difficult moments.
We wanted to give them some money, you know, and for CP of Colorado, and we discussed how we would raise some money. And so I thought, he said, well, just ask the wine people if they'll like to, you know, put out some wine and we'll do a wine tasting. Everyone just loved that event so much. We didn't coin Wine in the Pines until a little later.
I realized a lot of things have been accomplished and a lot of things have happened because of the Wine in the Pines. And like Kelly always says, you know, we're in this together. And that's why Kelly is here, because she is the part of it. She is the reason we're doing these things. Kelly is a very vibrant part of our life, a very vibrant part of the Wine in the Pines, and she's a vibrant part of the community. People are astounded at all the things Kelly does and she's involved in, because we've always made Kelly a very important part of our life, and we've had her input with us, and we'll always continue to do that.
I'm definitely most proud of Kelly.
I
couldn't say any more than that.
If you can give and make a difference in some person's life, don't hesitate, give. I don't care if it's $1, $1 million. Give what you can, because you can help. If you can help somebody better their life, whatever that is.
If we can make their life a little bit more enjoyable, a little easier on families and on them, you know, that they will be respected in life, that's what my goal would be. And I think through our endeavors with Wine in the Pines, we've helped make Kelly's life respectable in our community. And maybe I would like to see that for everyone with special needs.
What would you say to young parents today who happen to have a child with a disability? What would be the words you'd use?
Believe would be my first word. Because you have to understand that some of the doctors that you encounter and some of the people that you encounter will tell you things, and they'll say, oh, they'll never do this, or, you know, this is just what we see, and it's, you know, this is what it is. But you have to believe, and you have to believe, especially the early years. The early years are the most important years. I mean, from 0 to 7, the brain still develops, and you have to believe that the things that you're doing to try to help your child will make a difference, and they did for Kyle. He did do things that they said he would never do. So my word is just, you know, you've got to believe.
They just want to help the right people, and really at the end of the day, it's how many children's lives have we affected and made different, and having a son with cerebral palsy really makes you look at life in a completely different manner than you would have looked at it prior to the time. Even in his short period of time in his classroom, you know, he changed the kids' lives where
even years later, the moms would say to me, yeah, our child still remembers having Kyle in the classroom. And, it's just an amazing thing. Kyle taught us so much more than we probably were able to ever teach him.
For me, the biggest moment is, to many people, the smallest moment. And that is walking into a child care facility run by CP and seeing the members of the cerebral palsy staff working with and caring about one child at a time. And to see the way the children respond and the way the staff deal with the children may be a small moment in everybody else's day, but for me, that's the reward. That's the big moment, is to watch what we're doing actually matter to somebody. I'd like to see CP become a leader in the coordination of both public and private resources that are brought to bear on the challenges faced by people and their families. While there's a good deal out there by way of support, both public and private, I'm not convinced that it's as easy to access as it might be, nor as well coordinated. I think that there's an opportunity to coordinate some of that, again, for the benefit of the people who we want to deliver those services to. And coordination like that requires leadership. I can't think of any organization better situated or more capable of exercising that leadership than this one.